The date is Friday, March 18th, and you're listening to Entertain This, a thought-provoking podcast encapsulating all things entertainment. It's that time of the year again, when I get to talk about one of my favorite games of all time, Bioshock Infinite. We'll give you some historical context and a brief review of the lore as we soar into the sky to visit the city of Columbia. So enjoy!
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to your favorite show on the internet, encapsulating all things entertainment. It's Entertain This.
Entertain This.
As always, I'm Alex.
I'm Michael.
And I'm Nick.
We've been really hit or miss with introducing ourselves at the beginning of these shows.
Yeah.
I think that we're going to start putting a real fine pin in it every time that we start a show to introduce ourselves so that people know who we are. Because we're all from the same part of America, and though I know that our voices don't sound the same to us, I think there's a good chance that somewhere people are like, these three boys look and sound the exact same.
Yeah, for sure. Just gotta form that habit.
Just gotta form the habit, gotta get in there, gotta get the job done, gotta start a new nation, gotta meet my son. Nick, do you have an episode for us today?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I do.
Can you be 100% sure? Show me what
yes.
100% sure would look like.
Oh, 100% sure? It'd look like this.
That's great for the audio podcast. Could you?
I'm 100% sure.
Could you describe for the audience what it was you just did?
So what I did to show my sureness was I gave a thumbs up.
That's right.
Big smile and a head nod.
And that meant I'm 100% sure.
100% locked in. We're doing it.
Let's do it.
Okay, let's do it. Well, I don't know if you guys know this or not, but it's been 2 years since our inaugural episode that we released back in March of 2020, if you can believe that.
I remember when it was 1 year and we were all like, are we still doing this?
We're still here doing it, you know? So I'd like to begin, how I do every episode by reciting our Pledge of Allegiance. You want to do that?
Okay, that's not how we start every episode, and I 100% don't want to do that.
I pledge allegiance to the
flag. I don't want to do this.
Of the United States.
I don't think we should include this.
That's kind of a weird thing that we did in school, right? It's kind of, why do we begin every day with the pledge?
Do you want to get into why we began every day like that? Because I can get into it. I can get into why the government made us do that every day as impressionable children.
It's a little strange, though, right? Kind of a weird thing. At least in my school, we began every morning with the announcements. Like, today we'll be serving cheese bread in the cafeteria. Then they got right to the Pledge of Allegiance. Maybe it was the other way around. I don't remember. But if you're one of our international listeners, the Pledge of Allegiance is a series of words that are recited by usually young school children while facing the American flag with a hand placed over your heart. With all that said, I think I'll ask my first non-rhetorical question of the day, and it is as follows. What does it mean to be a real American?
Those pauses must be so funny for the people who listen to the podcast. What was the question? Why is it so?
What does it mean to be a real American?
You live in America.
Is that it, though?
That is all it should be.
You have an American citizenship.
Okay.
Even then,
it's gray.
Yeah.
I don't even think that necessarily dictates it.
No. There are, certain stereotypes associated with Americans in general.
This is wild, this episode already.
Once I drop like that one little thing, you're gonna be like, okay, now I get it.
I'm in.
But there's stereotypes about America. We all drive Ford F-150s. We drink bourbon. We like burgers and fries. We own firearms. We watch football. It's whatever the stereotype is nowadays. But
all of those things are true about a lot of people I know.
It's been 2 years since our first episode released. So, and I think we all can remember what it was initially about in the first time we ever recorded. And that was Bioshock, right? It's been 2 years. And that's a pretty long time to do anything on a consistent basis.
Are we doing Bioshock again?
we're talking all about Bioshock Infinite.
There it is.
And beyond.
It's that time of year again, folks. We're bringing it back. It's Nick's annual Bioshock podcast. It's the Bioshock Spectacular. We're finally talking about the third Bioshock.
For the last time?
2 years.
This has to be the last time, right?
Yeah, I think this is the last game, unless he's going to separate out the fucking Infinite DLC into its own shit.
I don't think he will.
Nah.
I wonder
Give
what
me
he
a
does
minute.
next year,
Yeah, if they don't come out with the Bioshock 4 by next year,
which they won't.
I'm holding on to it. Please, they have
We'd have
to.
heard about it by now.
They have to release it. But yeah, I'll probably be back next year with a little DLC dump. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe I'll move on to something else in March. So let's begin by putting Michael in the hot seat, as we so often like to do. No,
Why, Michael?
have you played any of the Bioshock games yet?
I hadn't the last 2 times we talked about it, but I have played Bioshock since then.
Which one?
1, 2, and Infinite.
You just played through them all?
Yeah, I have a lot of free time.
Damn! Congratulations! Pat on the back for him.
They announced Bioshock 4 in December of 2021.
Yeah. So was that rumored, or was it just like?
No, it's confirmed.
Okay, looks like we can continue the podcast for another year.
As long as there's another Bioshock on the docket, we can continue the podcast.
But if there's not, well,
That's
February
that's-
16th, 2022, Bioshock 4 may get delayed as leaks suggest studio loses 40 developers.
that ain't good. We got to hold
It's
on.
a race. It's a race now. Will they finish the game first, or will we make it to next year?
Guys, you have until March 2023, please. But right now we all know about Infinite. I hope you guys have played it. Is there anything that stands out to you? Or what do you remember about it?
It's super meta.
Yeah. It's much more like on the nose about what it's telling than the other Bioshocks.
I remember the tears in time
Yep.
that you would interact with, and I remember your companion, which was the first time you got like a full-fledged companion in a Bioshock game, Elizabeth.
Yeah.
And she would go, Booker, catch! And she would just
Nonstop.
throw shit at you randomly, and
Booker,
every time you
catch!
would catch. And then I know that I once bought a replica Skyhook because Skyhooks were huge when they first came out.
They're fidget spinners, right?
They were giant
Yeah.
fidget spinners, but Skyhooks were the main source of transportation in Bioshock Infinite.
right.
You would use the Skyhooks and then the sky rails to travel.
Yeah. Lack of sky trains, notably. Kind of disappointing.
There was a Skytrain.
There's a sky train.
But no, they got the quartet right at the beginning of the festival. They're standing on a little.
No, that was a gondola.
Oh, it's a gondola. I mean, what is a gondola besides a Skytrain?
Well, it wasn't. It was more of a floating boat. If you want to be technical about it, that's what it looked like to me.
But yeah,
I'm not an expert.
they were sitting there, and in this like, what time period does this take place?
So this game takes place primarily in 1912.
Okay, in this 1912 time frame, they had a quartet sitting on or singing on a gondola, singing Beach Boys.
Gondola.
Yep, gondola.
Gondola.
Hey.
Yeah, but no, it was like they had this quartet singing Beach Boys in the 1912s.
What were they saying?
That was a little off, right?
Yeah.
I wonder what
I
that's
don't
about.
remember the song.
I may not always love you.
Yeah.
And then there was a bird in a bird cage. That's like one of the first choices that you get to make is whether or not you
That's the third choice, but who's counting?
God Only Knows by the Beach Boys.
Fair enough.
God only knows. That's one.
God only knows what I'd be with Sky Train.
It's a really
See, if
sweet
you mix
song.
them, then you can't get sued by either.
Yeah.
Or you
If
get
you
sued
just
by both. I don't know how to
everyone
math.
just yells at the same time and sings the same song, then
Then
maybe
the podcast will be a success. People will love listening to it.
This episode brought to you by Cacophony. What happens if we all shout at the same time?
It's a great product name.
Cacophony.
Rise of cacophony, fall of capitalism.
Yes. But
If we all scream, they can't sell us anything. And that's Bioshock Infinite. Nick, take it away.
no. We all scream for ice cream. No. But this game, as you might have already figured out, serves as a completely different game when compared to Bioshock 1 and 2. So much so that I won't even have to summarize the previous two games because I'll tell you to go listen to the episodes before. But I'll hint at the plot here by saying there's a reason why this game wasn't called Bioshock 3 because it's completely different.
It's like Bioshock 1, Bioshock 2, Bioshock, the rest of them.
Yeah. It's like if we were to give like a quick summation, it's like Bioshock 1 and 2 happen in underwater city called Rapture.
Yes.
Bioshock Infinite doesn't, so it's not called Bioshock 3.
Yes, for obvious reasons.
Bioshock Infinite, not underwater, not deepest depths of Earth, up high in sky, highest place.
Yeah.
Big ups is where we went.
The sky, man. There's a meme that I think somebody shared, and it was I think this is an in-game Easter egg where it says it's on a chalkboard. The creator direction is they put a house under the ocean for Bioshock 1 and 2. And then this one, they draw a cloud and it's a house above the cloud. And they said, yes, this. It's just dumb that I thought of right now.
Sometimes it's that simple.
Yeah, really. But those two games, those two episodes are full of great content and maybe a couple of mystery mouse tools that'll help us out later. I'll leave it at the fact that these games are packed to the brim with meaning that you might not have picked up on as a high schooler playing it for the first time in 2010 or 2007. Did I just really say that?
2007 is when it came. That's not true. It came out in like 2014 or 15.
The first game was released in 2007, yeah.
No, I'm talking about this game.
Oh, this one came out in 2013.
2013. You are an alien from another goddamn planet, and you'll never convince me otherwise. 2013 makes sense because I definitely played it in high school.
Yeah. But in those two games, there's philosophies, there's ideologies, there's ideologues, all hidden within the game. In this game, Bioshock Infinite, we have some different ideologies at play and what some might even call idolatry. But as you come to find out, it's a reflection on the good old US of A. So you might not have been seeing these subtle hints and maybe not so subtle hints of how our great American nation interplays with the world and our wild and crazy society. While before, in the previous installments of the Bioshock series, we had individualism versus collectivism, capitalism versus communism. In this game, we have some tougher concepts. They're not tougher to understand, but maybe they're harder to see because we're blinded by some of the things that we see every day as Americans. And it's not just because every American is cool as heck and has to wear sunglasses at all times. It's because there are these little nuanced things that maybe we don't necessarily see all the time. We're so used to seeing like the American flag paraded around, waved all the time that are like, that's a weird thing that other countries don't do at all. So what exactly is Bioshock Infinite for those of you who have been living under a rock? Well, it's a video game that came out in March 26th of 2013. It's kind of a happy accident that this episode happens to be released almost right before this, 9 years almost to the day. And in some ways, it can be construed as a sequel to the other Bioshock games. It keeps the first-person shooter level-based mechanics and elements as it did before, and keeps all the gameplay that you might have been craving from the other two games. You got a gun, you got a magical power in one hand, and you shoot it at enemies. That's pretty much all it is. But this time, you have an entirely new setting. And granted, I was a little apprehensive about this. I saw the release trailers. I think the earliest one was released in 2012. So I was pretty pumped about this game because by then I had already played Bioshock 1 and 2. I was a little apprehensive about it because it was in the clouds. I thought, oh, it's not going to be that scary because Bioshock games kind of, they're down in a city underwater and it's scary just because it's so dark and anything could come jumping out at you and has that horror aspect to it. So I thought I'd be missing that in this game. But it's a city in the sky. And that can't possibly be scary. Where's the water? Where's the spooky, big, angry drill men?
Yeah, there's no dark. It's not like the sky is the opposite of claustrophobic.
Yeah. You look out there, it's a pristine blue sky with white puffy clouds. You think, well, surely nothing bad can happen here. Well, I was in for a treat. So the game starts with a black screen as most games do, I guess. You have to turn on your TV to get it to play after all. But you get this dialogue between a woman who you don't know yet and Booker, who is assumed to be your character. You play as Booker DeWitt, and a woman asks you, Booker, are you afraid of God? And he says, no, but I'm afraid of you. And then a quote appears. The mind of the subject will desperately struggle to create memories where none exist. Attributed to a R. Lutece from a book, Barrier to Transdimensional Travel, published in 1889. So already you can see some weird stuff is going on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's a quote. Of course, it's another mystery masker tool that'll help us later. But those are both two huge deals later on in the game. But in this first playthrough, you just kind of gloss over them as kind of a neat item, I guess. Really not much thought put into that at all. And then you start the game, and I got a little giddy when I saw the first lighthouse because you know anything about there's always a lighthouse. Every single game. Well, I guess not Bioshock 2, but Bioshock 1 begins with, of course, a plane crash.
And then the ocean's on fire.
Because there's fuel spilled by the airplane that crashed.
And that makes sense, like, in a sort of post-thought brain, like, you know, hindsight's 2020. But when I first saw it, I was like, what the hell is going on?
Why is water on fire? This makes no sense.
And honestly, that's probably exactly where they want you walking into that game.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. The less you know, the better. Maybe. It's debatable. So you see this lighthouse, and it's storming. You're out on a rowboat being paddled to this lighthouse by a man and a woman wearing this yellow kind of fisherman garb. I guess that's what ponchos were back then. It identifies you as you're off the coast of Maine, and the year is 1912. Okay. Got that much. Cool. Then the woman turns around and hands you a box, and it says property of 7th Cavalry, Wounded Knee, Booker DeWitt. Now, in retrospect, this game is kind of spoon-feeding you little plot points that'll help you out later on in the game. But you might not be aware of them the first time you play. You're just, oh, okay, so 7th Cavalry, Wounded Knee. You know, that can mean anything. Of course, you find out. Was
there a Battle of Wounded Knee or something?
That's right. Students of history will know that. So America did this thing that's really not cool to the
when we took their land.
Native American people. We took their land, and they didn't like that. So
because they had a right to not like it. We should all be clear and honest about that.
So we send in the army to forcefully remove them from the land, and that's when you get things like the Trail of Tears. There's a whole bunch of massacres that happen.
Was this Andrew Jackson?
Part of it, yeah. It started with him because
that guy.
It started back in as soon as we started pushing west of the Mississippi. That's when we started taking more and more of this land, and Andrew Jackson was definitely a part of that. George Armstrong, Custer, I mean, the list goes on. There's a bunch of famous names out there. You probably heard of Custer, right?
Custer, I barely know her. Next.
Nice. No. Yeah, Custer's Last Stand, it's a big thing, but that's neither here nor there. Look it up on your own time. But inside this box that the lady hands you is a pistol and a picture of a girl. And on the back of this photo, it says, bring to New York unharmed, written on the back. So there you go. That's a reason for doing the game. That's the big plot point. You got to find the girl, bring her back to New York. Simple as that, right? So you kind of gather that you're some sort of private investigator guy on a mission to find this damsel in distress. It's a very vogue plot point for especially this time period. And it's deeply problematic. So to kind of fill in the blanks about this damsel in distress business, I'm going to bring in our fact checker, Chloe, to give us a brief history of this trope.
Is Chloe just good to go with this information?
Yeah.
Yeah, we talked about it previously.
Was this while I was playing Grand Theft Auto Online?
No.
Okay, great.
Talk behind your back. Why would we do that?
So
same reason that I bought a drone behind Chloe's.
What would I have said? Like, no, you can't buy a drone.
Yeah, good point.
How dare you spend your money?
That's hard-earned cash, baby. Anyway, the damsel in distress trope is kind of led by this idea that women, need to be in like a subservient role, if you will, and that a man or multiple men or
Another woman?
an ogre and a donkey will go to a woman who is in some kind of precarious situation. And, sometimes it's driven by lust or love or kinship or the promise of some kind of reward. And, oftentimes the woman is perfectly capable of saving herself, but the man being the rescuer allows him to fulfill this patriarchal need to protect and serve the women. And this archetype kind of promotes qualities that traditional women are supposed to have, like the being subservient, being pure, being innocent, being delicate, domesticated. So all of this stuff kind of fuels the damsel in distress. One of the most famous being like the character Anne from King Kong, or like MJ from Spider-Man is very often perceived as a damsel in distress, even though she's perfectly capable.
Hold on.
I knew you were going to take offense, but I really tried to set it up with enough context that this wouldn't happen.
Let me, a white man, explain to you.
Oh, good. Yeah.
Mansplain. Here we
What
go.
I will
Your
say
listeners
is that
will love that.
I don't know if she could have done anything about being taken by a giant gorilla. Like, nobody was going to rescue her. And in fact, she did rescue herself, if I'm not wrong. She convinced King Kong to get down and, like, give up the goat.
Yeah, but it's not about whether the man is successful or not. It still prompted a whole group of men to be like, let's go save the beautiful woman from the big angry monster.
I see.
So, yeah.
So it's a little problematic.
That's like the first half of Shrek.
Yeah. That's what I said. A man or multiple men or an ogre and a donkey. Like it can be all kinds of variations on the basic formula.
Mm-hmm. That's what this game is. It's it starts out like a damsel in distress film, and then things happen, and you find out this damsel doesn't need rescuing at all. So that's that.
Love that for her.
Way to go, Elizabeth.
Bye, guys.
Okay, bye. Thanks for telling us about that.
Hey, good call bringing her in to do it, because you would have sounded like a real ass trying to explain it.
See, men need to. Yeah, I don't have the proper accreditation for that. So where do we leave off? The lighthouse? So you make your way to the top of this lighthouse. It's an old, like, kind of vintage looking lighthouse. It's not like the one you saw in Bioshock 1. So they lose points for that, I guess. But this time you make your way to the top of the White House as opposed to going down a spiral staircase to a bathysphere. And you hear all this music going on. There's I think there's My Old Time Religion playing. Bring Us the Girl and Wipe Away the Debt is sprawled all over the wall. So once again, it's hammering home this message of you have to go rescue the girl and wipe away your debt. So he has some sort of debt to pay. You know this much. So you get to the top of the White House and you get strapped into this rocket chair thing. It's pretty bizarre. And then you just get blasted off into the clouds. And there you go. There's a city of Columbia.
That scene where you get like sent up there is so good.
Oh yeah.
Oh good.
Yeah.
The little pause followed by the gentle hallelujah.
Yeah.
So good.
It is absolutely nuts that it is almost entirely first person. That whole cutscene. That's what makes it like freaking crazy.
Yeah, I got like the reverse ODST thing, like because you know how ODSTs are sent in little pods, and that's a Halo reference. Some people will get that, but it's you're going up instead of down, so it's kind of nerve wracking because you're like, where the hell am I going? Am I going to die?
Mm-hmm.
And he's struggling to get out of it because he's strapped into the chair too, and it's a really tense moment. And then you just pop up over the clouds, and there's this lovely city, all shiny and bright.
Yeah, because like from first impressions, outside of like being when you first get there and you get like baptized and all that, like first impressions of the city is like, oh wow, this place is pretty cool.
Yeah.
It looks like Main Street in Disney.
Yeah. It's
Well,
not like
that.
Bioshock where it's like you get there, it's like, oh, everything's run down and dirty and claustrophobic. It's like, oh, everything's very clean. Everything is very open. Like people are happy. Like, what's going on here?
Because you look at the game, you're like, I'm not playing Bioshock. What?
Yeah.
What's all this happiness going on here? People should be miserable and underwater. So, I mean, right there's a ton of stuff to talk about within the first like 5 minutes of the game. But before we get to more of the plot, I'd like to talk a minute about American history. You might be wondering why I'm talking about American history and what it has to do with a video game. Well, it's twofold because A, I love American history and I want to talk about it. And B, I have to talk about a little thing called American exceptionalism. You guys heard of this?
I've just now realized how excited I get for these episodes because these are really like entertaining for me. How Nick like delves between the Bioshock games and American history. Like this is Nick at his prime. Please continue.
I'm loving it. Do you guys want to take a stab at American exceptionalism and define it, or do you just want me to?
Is it that we're brainwashed as Americans to believe that we're exceptional when we're absolutely not, and we're just about standard for the world?
Yeah, it's a little bit of that.
Cool.
It's
Half a point.
It's the belief that America is inherently different from other nations.
Okay. I was on the right track.
Yeah, you were. So half point there. But its proponents argue that values, political system, the historical development of the United States are unique in human history, often with the implication that the country is both destined and entitled to play a distinct positive role on the world stage. So that's where you kind of get this American interventionism a lot, especially in like the latter half of the 20th century, because we have to share our great gift with the world. I mean, look at us. We're doing great over here. We have to go police the entire globe.
I want to see a story where like it's about Superman, but if nobody wanted him to help save the day, like if he was like every time he came in, he like killed a bunch of citizens, but he like saved the kid who was falling. And like at the bottom, there's like a bunch of firefighters with their like trampoline thing that they catch falling people in. And they're like, you killed so many people and we were right here. And he's like, you're welcome. And then he flies off. That's what it feels like.
Call him like, I can't call him Captain America, but you can call him like Super
Saver.
Super American.
That's not coined by Walmart yet, right?
Can't be. I haven't seen a trademark on it, so you're good.
Great.
But there are two words that are kind of problematic in that definition that I just read you. Actually, the entire thing is kind of problematic.
Correct.
And totally not true, of course. There's nothing exceptional about us. We're just another country. But it is something interesting to dissect and explore. So let's take a look at this American exceptionalism through the lens of our founding. As you know, we were a British colony at one point, the 13 original colonies. And we decided that we didn't like King George taxing us on tea and sugar. So we had a little tea party.
This is the first time in my life that I realized that the reason we became a country was because we were like, man, fuck taxes.
Yeah, pretty much.
Like I knew that from history, but it's funny when you put it in context, especially because right now is tax season. And I'm also like, man, fuck taxes.
We're getting shafted, man. I mean, there's a couple other things too. This was a slow boil, as I've mentioned probably in previous episodes. It happens like starts in 1765. The heat starts getting cranked up a little bit and a little bit more, and then 1776 is the summer when things just all hell broke loose. For the good of America, of course. But there are people out there, especially in this game, who flat out worship our founding fathers. And this is known as idolatry, of course, because you worship an idol. But one of the first level in the city of Columbia, it starts you off next to these big old 3 statues of Thomas Jefferson, George Washington, and Benjamin Franklin. 2 of those men actually go on to become president. I'll leave you. This is a fun trivia. Can you tell me which one isn't?
Ben Franklin.
You guys are so smart. But the name Columbia wasn't chosen in a vacuum either, because it was chosen in reference to the female personification of our country. And it's also a tongue-in-cheek reference to the 1893 Columbian Exposition and World's Fair. You guys know anything about this? Ringing any bells?
That's where Walt Disney displayed his perfect utopian city.
No.
Close? Okay.
I think Walt Disney was actually one of the people in attendance in the World's Fair, which kind of like led him to.
Well, he presented stuff at the World's Fair too. Like
it wasn't this one.
The Hall of Presidents that is in Disney World was originally called Moments with Mr. Lincoln, and it was an animatronic that was presented at the World's Fair.
Wow. It wasn't this World's Fair, though.
Fair enough.
That was 1930.
I was trying to loop it back around to Main Street Disney.
Yeah, that's where I think he saw all this as a kid, and he was like, wow, someday I'm going to make an amusement park just like this, or something along those lines. But back then in 1893, America wasn't really all that exceptional, and some would argue we still aren't, but we sure thought so. And damn it, we have to show everyone else. So it follows a trend of these other nations at the time. They came to the World's Fair, and they thought they were hot shit too. It's something called nationalism. Everyone thought they were the bee's knees, and that kind of continued throughout the world until World War I, when after that, European countries saw the damage that extreme nationalism had caused, and they kind of shift away from that because they see what happens after that. So America does not, because we're spared from a lot of the bloodshed and damage that came from these world wars. So we continue on being our nationalistic, patriotic selves for quite some time. And now that we get chosen to do a World's Fair, it's back in the day when this was quite a spectacle. Nowadays, World's Fairs are just kind of like, I guess they're still going on, but they're not that big of a deal, right? And it's been said that 27.8 million people visited this event from May 1st to October 30th. So that's a pretty short time window, and that's a lot of people, especially back then when we didn't have reliable means of long distance transportation. You had to take the train. It signaled the rebirth of one of our largest cities after it burned to the ground in 1871. Chicago burned to the ground. I think Boston had a big fire too. Fires were like big deals back then. They leveled entire cities. So to have this World's Fair be in Chicago, I mean, just 20 years after the city was leveled, and you see this giant white structures and neoclassical architecture everywhere, like that, this is a big deal. It showed like, hey, America's back. Chicago's back. We're back on the world stage, and we're going to be doing everything right.
Is this also when the serial killer came to be?
Yep. Yeah. So
The Devil in the White City. Yeah.
Mm.
The one who was basically just doing life insurance fraud.
Yep. He does this thing in this white city. And it's called that because all the buildings were painted white and they were all adorned.
Because they were like, look, no ash, no scorch marks, no burns. We're here.
Yeah.
We did it.
And as you know, cities were pretty dirty back then, especially with all the coal burning trains going in and out of the station all the time. So being white, having a white building was a big deal.
Basically meant then. Like, I think they were kind of like, hey, look, it's a new city.
Yeah.
It's a white city.
It's new. It's pristine. There's gardens everywhere. They use this Beaux Arts style, which is similar to neoclassical style. So, a lot of the buildings in Washington, D.C. with the big columns and the parapet on top and the dome and all that.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of what they're going for here. There's slight differences between the two, but we're not going to sit here and talk about architectural theory. But it's meant to showcase what a typical American city ought to be like. It was very clean. It was modern. It's considered the first example of a comprehensive planning document in the nation. The fairground featured grand boulevards, classical building facades, lush gardens, and it was, all within this rational neoclassical Beaux Arts style. And as a result of the fair's popularity, architects across the United States were said to be inundated with requests by clients to incorporate similar elements into their designs. And this was the first World's Fair where inventions like the electric light bulb came into play, and amusement rides like the Ferris wheel were debuted. So, back to this game that we were talking about. The city of Columbia was first showcased at the 1893 World's Fair. It's a little alternate history. Of course, we know that the city of Columbia wasn't actually there because there'd be pictures of it, right? A floating city. Can you imagine? Everybody would be snapping pictures of that. But just entertain it for the minute.
There weren't a lot of cameras back then, honestly. I was thinking about that today. We are absolutely ridden with cameras in our world now. Like back then, if you wanted to take a picture of something, it was going to take you probably a good 10 minutes to set up the machine that would take the picture. Mm-hmm. And even then it was hard to get like a good picture if the lighting wasn't right. You couldn't just like, Yeah, you
had to develop the film afterwards too. And that took like a couple days. So
you could mess that up. You could absolutely mess up developing the picture.
We take it for granted how easy it is to just snap a picture, I know I sound like an old man ranting about this, but film has a very particular place in the history of photography. So we're showing off our big, city of Columbia, that it floats in the sky. After this exposition, the city floats off to various other places across the American land, and it showcases off our ideals and our values. But how does the city float, you might ask? Well, it's a little sci-fi thing called the Lutece particle. Remember that guy that I read the quote from in the first little game there? Yeah, our Lutece, that's him. He or her, them, both. So they invent this particle, and it causes things to just remain stable in the air, which is funny because all the buildings you see are bobbing, so it can't be that stable. But anyways, it's a particle unaffected by gravity, and I mean, if you're paying attention to physics class, you will know that the only particle that can be unaffected by gravity is light, the luxon. It's just an interesting physical note because they have no mass.
And helium.
Helium is buoyancy. That's a completely different thing. But
okay.
Okay. But Columbia spends a few years parading around the United States. It takes, goes on a little road show, I guess. But Columbia gets into a little trouble in 1901. There's something called the Chinese Boxer Rebellion. And any students of history know what this is about? The Boxer Rebellion? No?
Nope.
I'm setting you up for a joke here. You can talk about men's undergarments, how they're called.
Not going to take it. Just keep
Nope.
going.
Didn't take my bait. I hate that. But basically, what this was a reaction to Western influence pushing their luck in China. There was a group of nationalists known as the Boxers who wanted to push this Western influence out of China because they were causing all sorts of havoc and trying to sell products and stuff like that. So that's pretty much what the Boxer Rebellion was in a nutshell. But the city of Columbia gets involved because they go to the city of Peking and they just open fire on it, killing civilians, leveling buildings. It's not cool. And in response, in July 6th of 1902, Columbia succeeds from the Union, and the following year disappeared into the clouds, never to be seen again. So you have this runaway state, floating city that can level entire cities just floating out there. Like, what do you do at that point if you're the American government? There's not much you can do because it just disappears into the clouds. What are you going to do? Chase it down? You don't have airplanes yet. So you're kind of left in this awkward situation. Like, yeah, Columbia's out there, but they come back.
It is wild that in this world we are led to believe that the first thing that they did with these atoms that defy gravity is build a community instead of building a source of transportation. That is a wild thought. And I get that we just kind of have to swallow our logic there and accept that that's what happened. But they definitely made hoverboards and planes first. And then they were like, maybe we could put a house on it. Like, that's the order for which this happened. They didn't start at houses and then go, what if we did a whole city?
Yeah.
That's bullshit.
These houses are going so well. Why don't we just build more?
Guys, maybe we could put them on our shoes and then we could fly. Shut up, Larry!
They push them off the side. Get out of here.
And that was the beginning of that meme.
Yeah, that's what it was. They're in the conference boardroom. Just push. It could have been. Who knows? But the leader of Columbia, he's a man known as Father Comstock. And he's kind of this older guy. He's got a white beard. He looks very authoritarian and patriarchal and all that. But he's taken over complete control of the city. He was kind of in charge of the decision to, A, go to Peking and be kind of interventionist in a time where America really wasn't that interventionist. And he takes control over the city. And he rallies all the people around him to his beliefs. And he goes about creating this ideal society. So there we go. We have another utopia. From the original Bioshock games, the utopia was all about capitalism. In this particular game, it's more about faith and America.
Yeah.
So get this. America isn't American enough for Columbia. They wanted to be the most American they could possibly be. So they dropped out of America to be the more American America. Did I say America enough times? I hope they're paying me. But seceding from the Union hasn't ended well for other states. The South tried to do that, but this time they can escape into the clouds, so they get off scot-free. So American history class is over. We can ring the bell. You guys are dismissed. We can talk more about the plot now. So it's already been established as soon as you get launched into the air in this rocket thing that you're playing as Mr. Booker DeWitt. And you've arrived here in Columbia on some kind of temple. As soon as the rocket drops down, you get to see the city. You're in this temple kind of place of worship type thing. It's evidenced by stained glass and candles and stuff like that. Stuff you might find at a church, right? And there's this dude, Father Comstock, who's portrayed in all these stained glass murals. He's obviously a pretty big deal. You think maybe he's like a Jesus figure or a God figure to these people. But there's a lot of the first of many religious overtones that you might come across in this game. And of course, to gain entrance to the city, you must be baptized. It's kind of weird. You explain to this preacher guy like, hey, I don't want to be baptized. Look, I'm just trying to get into the city. But of course he's not having it. You got to be baptized. You got to be dunked in the water to go into the city. So kind of weird already. And you might be thinking, America, we're not that religious one way or another. We have this separation of church and state, right? Right, guys?
Mhm.
Well,
Yeah.
that's fraught with controversy. You might remember reciting the Pledge of Allegiance that we tried to start off the show with. They have that little line there, under God, just chilling in there. Well, that was added in the 50s when we had the whole Red Scare beef with those godless communists across the ocean. This country wasn't really founded on Christian principles. I'll just say that. The founding fathers believed in God, obviously, but they were deists, meaning they believed that God created the earth and heaven, and then he just sat back to watch it spin with no active role in the events down here. It's also important to note that being a man of faith wasn't a prerequisite for holding public office or even voting. What was most important to them at the time of the Constitution's writing was that A, you owned land, and B, you were a white dude. So that's really all they cared about. But what has happened in the years since our country's founding has been a perversion of our founding documents. You might know from the Bill of Rights that we have freedom of religion in our 50 nifty United States, and it's literally the First Amendment to the Constitution, which reads as follows: Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. And of course, it goes on to do the free speech part, of course, but that in and of itself is profound because the first words of the first 10 amendments to the Constitution were, hey guys, we're not going to force anyone to follow any particular religion. But hey, what we say and what we do are often two different things. So
I
that
think
concludes my little rant on that.
I think that oftentimes when we talk about the Constitution, we forget the definition of amendment,
Yeah.
which is like it means that we changed something. So something was
Mhm.
bad and we were like, we need to fix it. So the original Constitution was like, no,
wasn't
this
much.
religion, like, no, you're not allowed to talk out against us, like stuff like that. Like we had to go back and be like, okay, you're free to do this and you're free to do that and you're free to do this. Fine. But they were amendments, so they weren't the original plan. And that's important to remember when it comes to our founding fathers.
The other thing too
Yeah.
is like the Bill of Rights, if I'm not mistaken, was written just like 10, 15 years after the United States was founded.
1790-ish.
That's still a long time for them to be like, maybe we should change some stuff.
Well, but at the same time, like it's short enough where it's the same people that are deciding that, oh, maybe we should change something.
And to
There's
be fair,
a
we were still at
generation there
war.
who grows up and is like,
For sure. But like it's not like the founding fathers were in their like 60s or 70s when they like founded the US. It
no,
was,
I
like,
mean,
couple
but
years
here's
older.
here's the hot and spicy about the founding fathers is they did this shit when they were in their 20s. Like America was formed by people who were in their 20s and like 30s. They weren't old men. They
right.
were wearing white wigs in all of the paintings, but they weren't old
explain the
men.
wigs, Alex.
So so you got to think if you're 20 or you're like 30 when like things are happening, 15 years later, you're right. You're only going to be like 45 max. But the people who were like 10 or even 5 are now the age that you were when you got the goddamn country to be a country. So like a whole generation walks in and is like, hey, we need to make some changes here.
Yeah.
Let's make some amendments. And the old guys are like, yeah, good point.
Yeah, I think the thing though that gets me is when we're relating it back to like Bioshock Infinite is the hypocrisy of like of a society being like, we want America as it was intended with no changes.
Oh yeah, that's
yeah,
what
and
I
then,
was thinking too.
yeah, and then it's like, okay, cool. The same people, like just as the founding fathers wanted, it's like, okay, the founding fathers also voted to change it. So
Mhm. Well, and
job.
more interesting,
crazy.
and to your point, the things that people always shout, the people who want America to stay exactly how it was or believe that it was better before, the stuff that they always shout are literal amendments. Like they are like,
Yeah.
don't change the stuff we already changed. Don't change it. And it's like, first off, we're not trying to change it. But second off, if we were trying to change it, that's kind of the whole point.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be
I
a
don't-
living document. That is a huge part about it.
I don't remember who it was, but I remember there was like an early US president who believed that the Constitution should be
This was Thomas Jefferson. No, it
every
was
20 years.
Thomas
should be-
Jefferson and John Hancock. It was one of the two where like
Probably
we
both
need
of
to
them. Yeah.
we need to burn it every like
Yeah,
10
yeah. They
years.
said they should shred it and burn it every 20 years and rewrite it from the ground up.
Exactly.
So that way they don't enforce generational tyranny.
Yeah, generational tyranny was the fear, correct.
Mhm, mhm. Man, if only they were around now, they'd be rolling in their graves.
Now if I try to shred the Constitution, I go to federal prison. This is bullshit.
Double standard much? But yeah, I mean, George Washington had a lot of good ideas too. But we're not listening to him, are we? So
He said, hey, what if you guys didn't have a two-party system? Hey,
They were
what
like,
if
"Get outta
presidents only
here."
stayed for 4 years and then no more? 2 terms?
nah, let's have two parties and only two parties, and let's enforce that by changing the voting system too. Anyways, it's messed up. We know it. That's American history in a nutshell, really, though. So the baptizer guy, this preacher man that I was talking about, he opens with the classic line from Bioshock 1. If you'll remember, one of the first lines that the splicer says when you see him from the bathysphere, he says, "Is it someone new?" Like they're just they're just handing this shit out right now. They're just throwing out these little sprinkles like, this is still a Bioshock game. This is still a Bioshock game. So Booker's like, no, I'm just trying to enter the city. I'm not like a holy roller. I don't need to be baptized. But I'm a good Christian boy, so I'll point out that this isn't a traditional baptism, or at least in the Christian faith. So he says, I baptize you in the name of our prophet, the name of our founders, and in the name of our Lord. And I should also point out this preacher is visibly blind, which is yet another very poignant metaphorical occurrence. Remember how I said Americans were blind to the actual history of our country? So something to keep in the back of your head. But there's something symbolic about this act of being baptized, because it's emphasized that it's the way that we wash our original sin away using this special water. In the game, it's kind of symbolic of being reborn. It's a rebirth. You're reborn in Jesus, and specifically the cycle of life and death. It's an ongoing theme throughout this game. Cycles are very big. And once again, it's compounded by the fact that they're literally saying in the background of this giant cathedral, will the circle be unbroken? So once again, it's just shouting these huge plot points on your deaf ears. And I'm telling you, you just owe it to yourself to replay this game once again. If you've already played it once, go back and replay it, because it's kind of like the first time you eat it, it's like plain vanilla ice cream. It's pretty good. You can enjoy it. But now, let me tell you, you can have chocolate chunks. You can have bananas. You can have chocolate syrup on top. And a cherry on top. It all works together just to make the second playthrough, the Sunday of playthroughs, so much better. And I realize I'm gushing about this game now, but it's literally one of my favorite games of all time. And it's truly a Sunday that you can just keep eating over and over and over again and never get tired of it. Me personally, I've played it, I think 3 full times through, maybe 4. But so you get baptized. The preacher man holds you down a little too long, so you black out. I don't think you drown. Maybe you do. But you have this weird dream in the process. You black out. You wake up in the office of private investigation, which is like Booker's office. Everything's in black and white, and you hear somebody banging on the door and saying the classic line, "Bring us the girl and wipe away the debt." clearly this is some sort of flashback to Booker before he arrived in Columbia. And there's this. It's kind of a dingy office. There's booze bottles scattered everywhere. There's lottery tickets. So you can tell this guy's having kind of a rough time. And maybe why he's so desperate to take on a job like finding this girl and bringing her back to New York. It's really just desperation at the end of the day. So eventually you have to go and open the door, and what you see before you is New York being attacked by Columbia, and judging by the buildings, it's sometime after 1930, because there's, the Empire State Building and the Chrysler Building. But you're like, what the hell? This is clearly not right. Something's happening here. So then you come to, and you're surrounded by those big old 3 marble statues that I mentioned before. And you walk out and you get your first real taste of what this city is. And it's downright beautiful. There's like this violin soundtrack that happens as soon as you drop into the main city square, and you're just like, wow, this is really pretty. This is really something special. There's a building floating down. It's docking with like the main street, because that's how the city is, I guess. Some sort of like haberdasher or shoe shop. But it's incredibly beautiful, and it has like this placid blue skies, and there's far off buildings floating in the clouds, and it's just insane. So you make your way down. You're making your way to this fair. There's a raffle fair. There's some sort of festival going on. It's the Founders Day Festival is what it's called. It's celebrating the day that Columbia seceded from the Union, as explained by a parade float as it floats by you. There's a moment when you see a poster warning citizens about the false shepherd. And as you find out, you are the false shepherd.
Yeah, because
Dope.
there's a poster that has like beware the letters AD.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And Booker's just got AD just fucking branded onto the back of his hand. And Booker's not a smart guy.
No.
So he's just
real good at catch.
So he's just like, oh, that's weird. And then he doesn't cover it up at all. It's like, nope, I'm going to walk through this whole city of people that are looking specifically for me.
Yeah. He's more brawn than brains. Shall we put it like that? But yeah, you see this poster, it's like a claw, like a devilish claw with AD written on the back. It's like, beware the false shepherd. And of course, that's more religious symbolism. I hopefully don't have to explain that to you. But so you look down, you see this tattoo, you're like, huh. That's what it is. So, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So you go down to the fairgrounds, you're introduced to your special power-ups, which are similar to plasmids, except in this particular game, they are called vigors.
Yeah.
So there you go. You can shoot fire out of your hands, the standard stuff, as you could in the original Bioshock.
Yeah, my favorite's the one where you can just like throw everyone in a line up into the air.
Yeah,
and, like they have you do the whole like one of my favorite things that they do to like introduce these like beginner like vigors is they have you play carnival games.
Yep.
With the different vigors.
Yeah,
as the tutorial. And it's all optional. It's all optional, which is one of the best parts. So it's like you can completely skip it, but if you really want to get into it, it's so much fun.
It's like other games should be taking notes right now, because this is how you do a tutorial level.
Yeah, make it optional.
Make it optional. Don't railroad them into one particular path. It's just like, here's all this stuff. You can look at it if you want, or you can just speed run.
Yeah, it's a tutorial made for world building, not just for gameplay.
Yeah. So it's within this fair that you get introduced to like a couple of the guns. There's the voxophone, which is like audio diaries from the original games. Those are back. They're called voxophones, which is interesting. And then you get introduced to the main bad guy, or I wouldn't say they're bad guys, but they're the antagonists to Columbia's forces, and they're known as the Vox Populi, which is literally translated from Latin as voice of the people. So another interesting little thing there.
Does Vox Machina mean voice of God?
No, it means voice machine.
Okay.
If you want to be
dope.
literal.
Yeah.
Yeah, Latin just sounds cool. I mean, if you say it wrong, you summon a demon, but if you say it right, you sound awesome.
They were recording a podcast and they named themselves Voice Machine.
Yeah.
That is the dopest shit I've ever heard.
Because what are each of them at the end of the day? Just different little voice machines.
Incredible.
I think we should change our name to Vox Entertaini. Nah, I don't know what entertainment would be in Latin.
Find out.
You just assumed it was entertaining.
Find out, because we're still looking for a group name for Project Icosa.
I know, we'll call it Vox Entertainment.
I don't think we need to Vox anything without being called out for it, but
Damn it. And then also there's these there's the little Nickelodeons, which are it's an old school word for something you look into and then you see like a little movie playing. So those give you like the newsreels and stuff like that. Just little things you can discover throughout the game. Salts are introduced, which they power the vigors. They're kind of like Eve in the Bioshock games. But they're called salts in reference to smelling salts, which were used to revive people when they fainted. So back in the day, women used to wear these really tight corsets and it would squeeze their insides. And then, of course, that would cause you to pass out. So they revived them with smelling salts, which is like a ammonia salt solution. And you smell it and you go, "Ooh!" It's really bad. Really bad smelling. Very in vogue for the time, very historically accurate. But these fairgrounds are just hints of what's to come in the game. So eventually you get your ticket to the raffle by using a superpower called possession on a machine. Possession allows you to control the machine and it'll fight on your side for a minute. So you get your little ball. It's the number 77, which is what you shouldn't have picked because of a telegram that warns you about that. But so you got two things going for you. You got the AD and you got the 77. It's like, dude, you're going to get discovered at some point. What are you doing? But there's these weird twins that stop you at the gate. They look like twins because they're dressed the same. They sound very proper when they talk. So, it's kind of weird to be in Colombia talking like that. But they ask you to flip a coin. And you can either choose heads or tails. It's up to you, the player, to choose this. So you call it out and you say tails. And the coin lands and it's heads, or one of the two. I can't remember which, but basically one of the guys is wearing this big chalkboard and it has a ton of tally marks for heads and none for tails.
It's the illusion of choice.
Yeah. Once again, we're having a free will debate. But yeah, it's just like, why do I even choose? It's just going to land on tails anyway. Who cares? So we get this baseball, we get the raffle, and there's a guy up on stage and he's saying, "Welcome to not the World's Fair, but welcome to the Founders Festival," or whatever. And you get the number and you get to pick the baseball. It's number 77. It's your lucky number. And the prize is a first baseball throw at a mixed race couple who has been bound and placed on a stage.
I remember this.
With super racist imagery all around them. You can look this up with African-American stereotypes. I won't describe it because it's downright obscene. Yeah.
And not obscene, but upsetting as well.
Yeah. So they're tied up and then you get to throw the ball. And this is your first choice. First choice of the game. You get to choose to throw the ball at this couple or you get to throw it at the announcer guy. So obviously an irrational person would throw it at the announcer because he's being a racist dick, right? So you do that, but then you're stopped mid-throw because he notices that you have the AD mark on your hand. And this is when all hell breaks loose. So you're like, all right, we got some combat coming here. So it's very gruesome how it starts because you throw the ball up in the air to distract these two security guards that are attacking you. One of them has a skyhook, which is like that fidget spin that we were talking about. He started spinning it like he's going to attack you. And the other guy gets his face smashed into the skyhook and blood goes everywhere. It's very gruesome. So you're off for a very good time already. So that's your first choice in the game because you're discovered as the false shepherd and you get the combat. So you make your way to Monument Island, which is where Elizabeth, the woman you're trying to rescue, is being held. And that's when things are kicked into 12th gear because once you're inside the monument, you see all this electrical equipment, medical stuff, and you're left to wonder, what are they doing to this poor young woman? And why? Well, it turns out Elizabeth has the power to manipulate time and space in the form of those tears that we were talking about before.
Mm-hmm.
And tears are basically these holes when two universes are close together.
I think this is how I explained away the Beach Boy thing when I was a kid, was like, oh, they heard it through a tear, obviously.
Which they did. That's exactly right. So the two universes are close together, and there's this hole that connects them, and they can be in the same time period or they can not be in the same time period. Doesn't really matter because you know how time space is. um, so Elizabeth can manipulate these tears, and she can. Booker actually witnesses this when he goes to rescue her from the tower because she opens a tear to Paris sometime in the 1980s, and you hear like, "I think everybody wants to rule the world" in
Yeah,
the background. And you're
something
like,
awesome.
what the because it's 1912. What the hell is going on? And it ends with the fire truck barreling towards the tear. And you're like, oh, so Elizabeth closes the tear. Clearly you can see she's kind of struggling to open it. That's because there's a giant electrical siphon that's kind of like limiting her powers. So she can't like have the full power of the tears. But the fire truck narrowly gets you gotta wonder what they see on the other side, you know? Like they see some chick chilling in a room. But anyways, there's a little problem with breaking her out of this tower because there's a little something called the songbird. And the songbird is tasked with keeping Elizabeth safe and secured in the tower. So you start thinking in the back of your head, like, yeah, this is gonna be a boss battle. I can already tell. But nope, you manage to escape, and the songbird tears the entire Monument Island statue to bits.
It's important to state that the songbird is fucking huge.
Huge. Yeah, he's not like a little, Tweety bird that you can hold on your hand.
Giant bird.
He's at least like 12 feet long, I think.
Yeah.
And the wingspan is like, let's say the size of a bus, to put it in perspective. But he's a really big bird. He's mechanical. He screeches and he goes, or whatever he does. But it's
That's very good.
Thank you. We've been working on it. But eventually he chases you out and you just jump right off the tower, hoping that there's a skyline, those rails in the sky.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the chili. Hoping there's a skyline underneath you. So, of course there is. So you get on it, you get your fidget spinner out, you start riding it, and the songbird's like trying to attack you all the while you're doing this. And then eventually he just chops the skyline in half and you fall into the ocean. So that's
That's it.
That's it. That's how you die. No, I'm kidding. You fall into the ocean and you wake up on a beach, and you wake up once again, or you have a dream state where you're once again in Booker's office, but this time Elizabeth is there, and you just met this woman. So what's she doing in your dreams?
What's she doing?
Sometimes it's like that, I guess. But they're pounding on the door. Bring us the girl, wipe away this whole thing again. Open up the door. And you're like half dazed and you're saying, Anna. Yeah, well, who's Anna? What is he talking? Maybe it's Booker's wife. You don't really know at this point. It's just kind of this weird thing where like, okay, it's just a throwaway thing. I don't know. But you wake up on the beach and then you have this moment of pure joy when Elizabeth is dancing on the pier, and there's this happy music playing, dun, 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 and you have to interrupt it because you got places to be. But what if you didn't? It's just one of those things that lives in my head rent free. Like maybe she's still dancing out there. I don't know. Before the shit hit the fan. Who knows? So you get up on the boardwalk, and this is the, I guess, second, third musical Easter egg, if you want to call it that, because there's a calliope, which is basically like an organ. You've heard it before. Doo 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 does that thing.
It's the one that goes
something like that. But if you recognize the tune, it's "Girls Just Want to Have Fun" by Cyndi Lauper, which released in 1984. So you're like, this makes me uncomfortable. I'm not sure why. And I see we're running low on time here. I don't know if I can get through all the plot because there's so much more to talk about. But I don't know. What do you think? Should we stop here?
Do you want to do a part 2?
Should we do a part 2?
Is there enough to do a part 2?
There's a lot more to this
There's
game.
so much more shit. I only got through the waking up on the beach section.
I think we're going to have to do a part 2.
Well, there you go. There's next month's episode.
You're going to make them wait till next month. I guess that is how I did. You know what? This is the last Bioshock game. I think it deserves a 2-parter.
It does.
2-parter? You want to record it tonight or
Nope.
nope?
Nope.
Okay. All right. So I'll just leave it there.
It'll be next month.
It'll be.
We'll leave it
next
on.
month.
We'll leave it how we should have left Civilization on Cyndi Lauper's "Girls Just Want to Have Fun."
Girls just want to have fun.
That's where we peaked.
America peaked in 1984. I'll say that much.
I think we all
Maybe.
agree on that.
Musically, definitely.
Well, when we come back, a quick this. Hey, we're back. That's my favorite because
It's always so jarring.
when we edit, you put in the little musical thing, right? In between and we'll be right back. The reason we do that is because eventually we're going to put either ads or like when we start our new show, like that's where we're going to put the promo for our new show and stuff like that. So there's a reason it's there. Project Icosa.
What do you do there?
We talk about D&D. Now it's a real play or an actual play podcast where we play D&D.
Thanks for the plug.
You're welcome. That's the plug. Now back to your regularly scheduled entertain this. And then do another musical thing here.
There's too many musicals.
Okay, hey, we're back. I have a quick this for us this week.
Do you?
I do, and I'm excited to talk about it. And I'm going to hopefully make it spoiler free. But first, I need a timer.
Timer?
Nope.
Nope. I got one right here.
Attaboy.
No, I don't. Where's my clock?
Timer, I barely know her.
God damn it.
Slipped it in.
All right. I got one.
Ready?
I got one too. Go.
Set. Go. As you boys know, I'm a fan of superhero movies.
Are you?
Specifically, Spider-Man movies.
No.
And a little bit less specifically, Marvel movies. I have not been impressed by DC in a very, very, very long time. And I think actually the last time that I was impressed by DC, it was like 2 Supermans ago. And I don't mean Superman movies, I mean physical Superman. People who played Superman.
Yeah.
And it was like a time-based Superman movie that took place like back in the golden age of comic books, which was like the 1960s. That was a good movie. I liked that. So imagine my shock and awe after what seemed like a dry spell in DC movie making that they come out with the Batman.
Ooh, please do not spoil. I have not seen yet.
There will be no spoilers in this review, but I will be today reviewing the Batman. We'll see. Let's see what you think after I give you my brief review of the Batman.
Good.
So we are once again taken to the dark city of Gotham, as this time Robert Pattinson takes on the cowl of our Dark Knight Batman. You know what a cowl is, right? That face.
Yeah. I was it took me a second.
The cowl is like the eye part and the ears part. That's the cowl.
Yeah.
And famously, I think it was, I don't know who it was, but he had like a full like neck cowl. So like when he turned his head, he was like doing full body like motions. It's incredible. There's a super cut of it on YouTube.
I know what a cowl is. I just like I had to get more context to get the understanding.
Yes. So this time Robert Pattinson is donning the cowl and cape. I said Patterson, it's Pattinson. Is donning the cowl and the cape and fighting crime in Gotham. But this time it's less about the punching and killing, the punching, beating up, and arresting, rather.
Batman gotten so many things wrong.
Very good.
I love it.
Michael, your statement just now made me want to stop in my tracks and not do any more. Like any steam that I had for this quick this has just been destroyed.
Go for it. You can only go up from here.
Okay,
I'm having fun.
So this time it's more of a private eye noir detective movie. So it's about the brains as well as the bronze of Batman. He's facing off against the Riddler, and this Riddler was advertised as being a serial killer. Like that is what they said. He is facing off against the serial killer, the Riddler, which is pretty wild because the only image I had in my head of the Riddler before here was Jim Carrey's The Riddler, which was like wild. But it is a scary movie. watching it, there are moments that are thrilling. There are moments that are just scary. The bad guy is creepy, but the more you learn, and as you're trying to also piece this together, because it's still a noir film, you're like, I kind of see where he's coming from. You're trying to guess the end. And I will say that in the final act, the last action the bad guy takes is one that no other Batman supervillain had ever thought to do, or that I even knew was an option. And it is huge, and as a special effect, it is incredible. So that's something to look forward to. But what I really want to talk about, what I really, really want to talk about is, now that you have the context of the Batman movie, there's an ARG that goes along with it.
No way.
And we all know your boy's a bitch for an ARG.
Yeah,
For those
he
of
is.
you who don't remember, augmented reality games, or ARGs, are games that take place both in the world of fiction and the world of nonfiction, because they kind of interlude between each other. Now, Batman's done this before. There was an ARG that went along with The Dark Knight. And it was more along the lines of like the Joker and stuff that he was doing. And it went so far as to have an actual like Harvey Dent press conference that happened where it got attacked and like shit was happening. And the only way you could get to that or know where it was going to be was by playing this ARG. Well, there is a use of a cipher in the Batman that you have to actually decode in order to read hidden messages that he sent out on a website that is actually mentioned in the movie. There's an after credit scene that'll tell you that website again. That's the only spoiler you're going to get, is that the after credit scene is just a website. But by playing through this, there is a hint to who the next villain that Robert Pattinson may face off against will be. And I will absolutely not spoil that. But I suggest you see the Batman, play the ARG, have a good time, good country, Q102. That's my quick this.
Nice.
Almost exactly 5.
Yeah.
Was it?
Yeah.
That's
getting good
wild,
at this.
because
I like
I
this.
had no reference as to how long it had been.
Nice.
Excellent. Well, boys, another one under our belts, and another part 1. I'm excited for part 2. We'll have
Shit's
to.
going
going
to
off
get
the
really
rails.
wild.
Here's the thing: it got wild in part 1 because we are passionate about American history and the understanding of
And we love
American history.
America.
No, we didn't say that. We do like America. America
Love-
has a lot of growing up to do. But surely we'll finish it in a part 2. But until then, if there's anything that you want to hear us talk about, there are a couple ways that you can reach out to us. The best way is to go to our website, www.entertainthis.net. Scroll all the way to the bottom. There's a little questionnaire that you can fill out. Or you can go to www.projecticosa.com and scroll all the way to the bottom.
Oh,
And the survey will be there too to fill out, because they both link to our website right now,
bananas.
which is pretty cool. The Project Icosa page will be coming to our website shortly. That's something that we're still working on. Or also, you could email us. We are entertainthispodcast@gmail.com. You can find us on Twitter. We are entertain_this. You can find us on Instagram. We are Entertain This Podcast. On Facebook, we're Podcast Entertain This. And until next time, entertain us so we can entertain you. And you can go to www.projecticosa.com and get hyped about our new show. See you next Friday. Goodbye.
Bye.
I don't know what to do with my hands.
Entertain this.
This episode of Entertain This was written by me, Nick Mustakangas, with additional commentary from Alex Steele and Michael Savoya. Our showrunner and resident fact checker is Chloe Price. Our theme music is Rush Bubble by Aaron Spencer, with interstitial music by DJ W. Tune in every Friday for new episodes, and thanks for listening.